So I suppose taking it then forward, I mean, we've talked a little bit about JLL Spark, JLL technologies, and how that all integrates together. But quite often when I interview the innovators within real estate, or who I perceive to be the innovators and the leaders in this space, quite often there is a personal journey to it all. And in some cases, people have been recruited into that role. In some cases, people have developed their own role. I'm really interested in that personal journey that has taken you from being Jordan to being Jordan Director of PropTech at JLL Asia Pacific. Could you just chart that journey for us so people can really see how you've gone about it?
Sure. So I mentioned before that I've been doing change efforts or transformation efforts for about 22 years. That really started with being a pain in the ass, and that part of it hasn't ended. When I was 18, I started working in a warehouse, and this was right when e-commerce was becoming a thing. Like, we called it e-tailing back then. Amazon was in its infancy, and I was working for the clothing brand Gap.com. And it was meant to be a way for me to earn cash to help pay for school and just live a young person's life. And I was always I hope that it's now framed as sort of creatively malcontent, but I was constantly criticizing the way things were being done. And someone was smart enough to sort of harness that energy. I had a really great mentor who said, hey, if you don't have a better plan, shut up. If you have a better plan, map it out for us. And that was, and I'm from Columbus, Ohio. This is where all this happened. So it's very sort of that direct country type of thinking. And yeah, look, it worked. I didn't know what I wanted to be in school. And that helped me zero in on actually what I wanted to study. I just knew I had to go to college because that's what you're supposed to do. So that straight talk helped me figure out what I wanted to do. One of the requirements of going to college in the US, in Ohio, where I'm from, is that you have to take at least 1 year of a foreign language. Yes, if you can believe that for the non-American audience, we do have such requirements. And
wow.
I agonized over my foreign language for the first 3 years of college. And a TV show inspired me to take Mandarin Chinese. So I took a year of Mandarin. And right as I was wrapping up my college career, the global financial crisis hit. I was bored with Ohio, so I decided to move to a city in China that no one had ever heard of, the city in central China called Wuhan. And yes, when I mention it, people are like, oh, and take a few steps back, right? But moving to Wuhan was an amazing cultural experience. It certainly helped me improve my Mandarin. I can order Chinese food with the best of them these days. I'm not sure I can still necessarily conduct a full business meeting, but it helped advance my Chinese skills. While I was there, I studied for the GMAT and then eventually got my MBA remotely. And that, while I was in Wuhan, I visited a friend here in Hong Kong. I fell in love with the city and visited quite a lot. So as I was finishing the first half of my MBA, I relocated to Hong Kong, started looking for a job and got a job from my sort of process engineering background. I got a job with a relocation and change management consultancy, and did quite a bit of work with them, doing change in workplace, including for some of the biggest names in the property industry, one of which was JLL. A couple years there, and I ended up being recruited to join JLL's workplace strategy and change management consultancy. So you can see that common thread of transformation coming through. And again, I hope it all comes from this place of creative malcontent, right? That, hey, I know it can be better. It's not that I don't like this, but to the point I made earlier, the best technologies eliminate tedious aspects of jobs. And that's why, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, this does not need to be this hard. And my contributions to this organization cannot be measured in how well I endure that. And that.
So, Jordan, just on in terms of that sort of headhunting for JLL, were they recruiting you into a specific role of that sort of change management type ethos, or was it something that you worked on with them to become what you are now? How did that all work?
it was more of a graduation from focusing on just the change delivery side to the front end strategy of designing new workspaces and new work modalities and things. So
Right.
I left a change management job at the previous company to go to JLL as a official title workplace strategist, but that had change delivery elements integrated into it. So it was like, we know you can do this, come do this as well. But I promise we're getting close to the end here and how we got there, because a few years of doing that, in the background, I was really sort of starting to study the wider conversation around the future of work. And I've been a technology nerd for as long as I could, play with dials. And so I was actually sending these unsolicited newsletters around to people in JLO. And I started making a list of people I thought should know these things and say, hey, this technology.
And let's be frank, it's because you still maintain that pain in the ass mentality, right?
I try not to be confrontational, but I do like to confront issues. There are some things that, if I can't make sense of it, or if I think I can make sense of something, a better way to do things with the tools that we have in our hands, I try to push that agenda. And I think between that, and I did a very short stint while I was at my previous firm. I worked for Bridgewater, Ray Dalio's hedge fund, and they have we could do a whole session on how unique their work culture is. But a lot of just experiencing 4 months of working there helped me learn a couple of very valuable skills for organizational transformation. One is how to speak truth to power. How do you address the issue and not that as someone's personal idea or opinion, right? How do you challenge those things in a way that doesn't feel like I'm coming after James because you're the one who proposed this? That was a big skill. And then also just sort of understanding how to quantify capabilities that are seen as qualitative and reorganize those to affect good change. And so that was the sort of way I got there. Is eventually people recognized, to your point, I was being a pain in the ass. They didn't like getting these emails, but they read them. Yeah. And thankfully they read them, and they said, oh, this is really in the interest of the larger firm. We should sort of the same conversation only 20 years later. Let's channel that energy at ourselves. And so that's how it became this report out role into our executive board here, kind of saying, hey, here's what I think the honest truths of this are. And yeah, that's the journey.
And there you are. You've ended up where you are.